Okay, this is going over question number 1 on the quiz, and it says fill in the table using this function rule. Y equals 3x plus 2. So in this problem, what you want to do is take in this table, you have an x and a y. You want to take each of these x's and plug them in to this x to find out what your y is. So the first one, as I can see right here, it's 1. I'm going to take y equals 3 times 1 plus 2, which would end up being y equals 3 times 1, which is 3, plus 2, or y equals 5. So my answer right here would be 5. For the next one, I'll go y equals 3, and then this time I'm going to put 7 in for x. 3 times 7 plus 2, which ends up being y equals 3 times 7 is 21 plus 2, or y equals 23. The next one, y equals 3, plug in the 8, plus 2, which ends up being y equals 3 times 8 is 24, plus 2, which ends up y equals 26. And the last one, y equals 3 times 9, I'm putting that in for the x, remember, plus 2, and then y equals 3 times 9 is 27, plus 2, or y equals 29. That's problem 1. Problem 2 says fill in the table using this function rule. So it says y equals negative 6x, subtract 2. So the same thing happens on this one. I'm just going to take these values for x, plug them into this problem, and find out what y is. So let's try the first one. So y equals negative 6, because I keep that. I'm going to plug in, first of all, negative 5 for my x, minus 2. Then that would be y equals negative 6 times negative 5 is positive 30. Remember, when you times a negative by a negative, it becomes positive. Subtract 2, or y equals 30 subtract 2 is 28. So I can do that on there. Then the next one, I'm going to plug in negative 1 for my x. So y equals negative 6 times negative 1, subtract 2, which would end up being y equals negative 6 times negative 1 is again a positive 6, minus 2, or our y equals 4. So I can plug that in on there. Then, let's do these other ones over here. Then I have y, actually, let's see, we will do these right here. Y equals negative 6. Make sure you can see this. Y equals negative 6. This time plugging in 0, minus 2, or y equals negative 6 times 0 is just going to be 0 minus 2, or our y equals negative 2. So that one would be negative 2. And last, y equals negative 6 times the 1 for x minus 2. So that would be y equals negative 6 times 1 is negative 6, subtract 2, which is I have -6 and I am subtracting 2 more from it. So for that one, my y will equal -8, and put that there. And I forgot to mention up on the first one that you want to plug in those values into, that's what's going to go in this box, especially when you're doing a problem like this on ALEKS, that's where you'll want to put them. So in there, into that box. All right, and then the third problem says graph this line. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller so you can see it a little bit better. But it says graph this line, and it has y equals 4/3x. Well, the 4/3 is just basically your slope. And since this doesn't give me a y-intercept, like a plus or minus b on this one, I'm just going to assume that my y-intercept is 0. So I will start my graph at 0, 0 and 0. And then I'm just going to do, this would just be my rise over my run. So, and it's positive in its slope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 3 to the right because it's positive. 2, 3, and put a dot. And then up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 3, 1, 2, 3, and put a dot. I can't go any farther that way, so I'm going to go over this way and do the opposite, which is over 3 to the left, 1, 2, 3, and then down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then over 3, 1, 2, 3, and down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, since I can't go any farther, and I'm going to use my ruler so that I make a straight line. When you're on ALEKS, you can just use your line tool, and if you just do it by hand, that's okay. But that would be graphing that line.